And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, November 1st. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to click that super chat button in the chat for any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast that you want me to acknowledge. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. Also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, let's get into what we're going to discuss for today. We're going to start off the show. We're going to recap last night's game between the Jets and the Texans. The Jets picking up the win, 21-13. So we'll get into how that all unfolded. In the second part of the show, we'll preview the NFC North matchup in Lambeau Field between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. One of the best games of the weekend. We'll talk about that. Then we'll get into an AFC East matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. And then the remaining two segments, we'll take a look at some of the big college football matchups for this weekend. I'll talk about some of the games from last week as well, and then we'll preview the early window games in the NFL, and then in the final part of the show we'll preview the late window games in the NFL. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Jets-Texans game from last night. So the Jets got the win, and if you remember, I did say yesterday it would not surprise me if the Jets win, because they were favored in this game. But I said, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take the Texans. And, Jets proved me wrong. And the Jets proved me wrong. It didn't start off pretty. The Jets offensively were not great in the first half, but they got it going in the second half. The Texans, they got the ball to start off the game. They didn't really do anything with it. And then the first play on the Jets' first possession, Rodgers throws a pass down the sideline to Davante Adams, and it was incomplete. The timing was off. There was miscommunication there. Because, if Adams makes that catch, that's a huge game to start off that drive. But, yeah, nothing there. Incomplete to Breece Hall. Then Rodgers got sacked, and then they punted. Thomas Morstead actually had a very good game. He's been money for them. I know Greg Zuerlein, they've had problems with him, but Thomas Morstead still, gets the job done, and he, was pinning the Texans back a lot last night. So then the Texans get the ball, and they're driving, and what ended up happening, so it was 4th and 21. The Jets get to Stroud. Stroud was not good last night. So they sack him, then another pass to Tank Dell was incomplete. Townsend punts it, and he ends up getting, run into. And then there ended up being a roughing the kicker penalty. So now the Texans get the ball, and they're driving again. You had a 29-yard run by Joe Mixon on this drive, and then Stroud gets sacked and loses the ball, and the Jets get the ball back. So, the defense gets a stop. Then you have another penalty, and then they're back on the field. And, Stroud ends up fumbling the ball. But the Jets did nothing with it. They punted. Breece Hall picked up a 12-yard gain on the first play of the Jets drive, and then he fumbled, but he was able to, get it before the Texans could. So that could have been a disaster. Then the Texans punted, and then there was another fumble by the Jets. And this one, you just can't do this. So they do an end around with Malachi Corley, their rookie, right? And he scores a touchdown, right? However, I was looking down for a second. I look up, and they're showing the replay, and you see he lets go of the ball right before he crosses the plane. So he pulls it to Deshaun Jackson, and they end up calling that a touchback, and the Jets get no points out of that drive. And I'm just sitting there going, yeah, here we go again with the Jets. So no points on that drive. So then the Texans get the ball. They punt again. And then the Jets punt, a lot of punts. However, so Morstead, he pins them back at the 2. And then the Texans go 14 plays, 98 yards down the field, almost 8.5 minutes of time of possession. You had a 32-yard pass play to Robert Woods on this drive, another 14 to Tank Dell on 3rd and 12, and then Mixon scores from 3 yards out, and the Texans go up 7-0. Jets punt, and then the Texans, so 31-yard pass play to Tank Dell. They get down to the Jets 38, and Fairbairn misses one of 2 field goals. He missed another one later in the game. We'll get into that, but he misses a 56-yarder, and then the Jets, they get the ball. They do nothing with it, and Texans actually got the ball back, but they just took a knee. C.J.Stroud actually got banged up in this game. It looked like Davis Mills could come in and play, but that ended up not happening. So, yeah, it was 7-0 at the half. Then the Jets, 11 plays, 70 yards down the field, almost 6 minutes of time possession. And Aaron Rodgers on 2nd and 12, he connects with Garrett Wilson for a 21-yard touchdown. It was a one-handed grab by Garrett Wilson, and that was not the only good catch that he had on the night. Looked like Rodgers got, pressured on that play. Was able to get it off to Wilson, and that tied the game. However, the Texans did respond with the field goal drive. Fairbairn kicked a 54-yarder, so that made it 10-7. Then the Jets go 12 plays, 70 yards, a little over 6 minutes of time possession, and Rodgers on 3rd and 19 throws it up to Garrett Wilson. They actually went for it on 4th and 1. They went for it on 4th down a couple of times. Rodgers connected with Devontae Adams on the first one for 17 yards. Adams actually got injured on the play. They were evaluating him for a concussion, but he cleared concussion protocol. And then on 4th and 1, he throws it deep to Mike Williams, but then there was a legal contact penalty, so that gave them an automatic first down. But then on 3rd and 19, he throws it up to Garrett Wilson, and Garrett Wilson makes this spectacular one-handed catch. As you can see, I used it in the graphic here. And they originally ruled it incomplete, but on the replay, you could see he got 2 feet in bounds, and they ruled it a touchdown. And Rodgers kept, holding his hands up like, hey, that's a touchdown, and it was a touchdown. And I really got to go back and watch it and compare it to the Odell catch, because, maybe I'm in the minority. I really don't know which catch is better. That was a spectacular catch. We know that was the catch of the year. So, that was huge for the Jets, that ended up happening. So, that gave them the lead, 14-10, and they didn't look back. So, now the Texans get the ball. Stroud connects with Tank Dell for a 50-yard reception. He ends up getting sacked on the play. They went for it on 4th down. They got it. Stroud got sacked again. So, Fairbairn makes a 43-yard field goal, right? This is on 4th and 22. However, there was an unnecessary roughness penalty. So that set up the Texans, gave them an automatic first down to the Jets' 12. And what ends up happening is, Fairbairn later in the drive kicks another field goal, or he's trying to kick another field goal, and he misses a 27-yarder, hits off the upright. So, I couldn't believe it. We got DubZYT in the chat says, who you got winning, Michigan or Oregon? I'm going to say Oregon, although who's the home team? Is Michigan home? Because that might change my opinion a little bit. But I probably still would go with Oregon just because they're the better team. But let's see here. But I'm going to take a look at it when I go through the games. Oh, Michigan is home. I'd probably still go with Oregon. I'd still go with Oregon, but Michigan is at home, so. But we'll get into that. We'll talk about it a little later in the show. But anyways, so yeah, Fairbairn misses that field goal, which was huge, and then we saw a couple of old friends connect for a touchdown. Rodgers connected with Devontae Adams for a 37-yard touchdown, and that put the Jets up 21-10. Texans then kicked a field goal to make it 21-13. But It was too little, too late. As the Jets pick up the win, they improved to 3-6 on the season. The Texans dropped to 6-3. Rodgers was not great in the first half, but finished with 3 touchdowns, had a little over 200 yards passing, went 22 of 32. Breece Hall had 74 yards on the ground. Devontae Adams, 11 targets, 7 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 10 targets, 9 receptions for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Jets defense, 8 sacks in this game. They really got after C.J.Stroud, who was not great. Riley Patterson went 3 for 3 on extra points, replacing Greg Zuerlein. Yeah, Stroud was not great. 11 of 30 for 191 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. They ran the ball for almost 200 yards. He had 59 yards rushing on the ground. Joe Mixon, 24 carries, 106 yards and a touchdown. J.J. Taylor, 3 carries for 23 yards. Tank Dell, a good game. 6 receptions for 126 yards. Robert Woods, 2 for 44. Dalton Schultz, 3 for 21. Those are the only guys that had catches in the game. Stroud threw to Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie, but these guys just did not catch the ball. Actually, they did a play in the near the red zone. Joe Mixon tried throwing it to Stroud, but it was incomplete. And Stroud was looking for a flag, but they didn't get it. And the Texans defense had 2 sacks in this game, and Fairbairn went 2 for 4 in field goals. But yeah, the Jets improved to 3-6. Can they keep the momentum going though? Now, they got the Cardinals coming up, the Colts, bye week, Seahawks out of the bye at home. Then you got the Dolphins, the Jags, Rams, Bills, Dolphins. I mean, there is a pathway to at least go 9-8. The Cardinals game is going to be tough because that's a team that can run the football. And look, I think this was a good win. This was against a good football team. However, the Texans were a little bit shorthanded because there was no Nico Collins and no Stephon Diggs. Had those guys played, I think it would have been a little bit different. But you know what? A win is a win. And can the Jets keep it going? Look, they got the talent to do it, but I don't know if they're gonna be able to because it's too deep of a hole to climb. And you beat a shorthanded team. However, Rodgers did look good in the second half. The defense was getting after C.J.Stroud. I mean, if they could carry that momentum into next week, defense can get after Kyler Murray. And, the Cardinals' defense is not great. So, another week, the Jets can, maybe keep the momentum going on offense. And Rodgers, and Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams and those guys, can keep it going. The problem is, again, the run defense. The run defense continues to be a problem. And now you're going up against James Conner and Kyler Murray. So they're going to have to, if it gets into a shootout, the Jets are going to have to outscore them. That's how I look at it. And then you play the Colts. I mean, is it going to be Joe Flacco? Is it going to be Anthony Richardson starting? Who knows? But that's a good win for the Jets. And again, coulda, shoulda, woulda. There were a lot of games that they could have won. They could have beaten the Patriots last week. They could have beaten the Broncos. If you have a kicker, the Bills, the Jets would be in a much better position right now. The little things that they messed up on. And Rodgers, you look at his season, 15 touchdowns to 7 picks. It's not spectacular, but it's not bad. And you saw it got called back, but he scrambled for a first down near the goal line. And, if they could at least get through these next 2 weeks and then you go into the bye and you could keep Rodgers upright, get him healthy, get him off his feet, and you come out of the bye, maybe you're a little bit more crisp with your receivers, got to win these next 2 games. If the Jets win these next 2 games, then we can have a conversation. But right now, it's too big of an obstacle to overcome right now at 3-6. But can they do it? Like I said, they got the talent. So let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will preview Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams' former team. We'll talk about the Packers and the Lions. We'll preview that game, one of the best games of the weekend. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.